Amy, Christy, Kayana, Dan, can we just start? Christy, I'm going to start with you. Would you mind just introduce yourself, your agency's mission, maybe some indication of budget and priorities, and how this has changed since COVID kicked off?
Hey, that's a lot. That's a lot. So in general services in the state of Tennessee, we have our Chief Procurement Office, which is responsible for consolidated procuring of goods and services. Since COVID, the difference has been half of our CPO staff is supporting TEMA's efforts in buying what's needed to deal with the issues to address COVID-19. Document Solutions is another division within our department. They're responsible for all the digital and print materials that happen, photography, videography, and just anything that has to do with printing happens in that department. And of course, what they've been doing is printing a lot of graphics and installing those all around state office buildings, following CDC guidelines, making sure everyone understands what 6 feet apart really means. So they've been doing that. We have Big Beagle and Asset Management, which manages everything from lawn mowers all the way to bulldozers, of course, our state fleet, and the sale of surplus properties from both the federal and state level, which is going to become more important after COVID, especially with the local governments across our state. And then finally, our State of Tennessee Real Estate and Asset Management Group, which is responsible for all the maintenance, management, and operations of our real estate assets. That particular group has been incredibly busy because they also manage all of our capital projects. And so you guys may recall that in February, we had tornadoes that came through Nashville. And so we lost 2 buildings where 2 of our departments were housed. We also lost a building that we were renovating to be able to store items for our Tennessee State Museum, the artifacts. And so Stream was very busy helping to find new homes for those 2 departments. So that's been really busy. Of course, they've also played a support role with TEMA, helping to find warehouse space. They have also been looking for alternative care sites. We had to find alternative care sites in Memphis, Nashville, Knoxville, and Chattanooga. So in addition, of course, they have 535 capital projects to the value of about $3 to $4 billion and 400 leases across the state. So our departments have been extremely busy. It's been I wouldn't say chaotic, but it's been pretty crazy trying to learn what's next. For us, our operating budget is about $370 million. As I said, though, we're also managing $3 to $4 billion worth of capital projects. So the priorities for this next year for us, first of all, we've been embarking, and some of you have heard me talk about this before, on our master planning process. Tennessee's had huge growth in the last several years, and Middle Tennessee especially so. So our real estate, and a good part of it is located within Middle Tennessee. So we decided it was time to really look at our real estate assets and determine whether we have those assets in the highest and best use. And we're also looking at those real estate assets in light of COVID-19 now, and also in light of alternative workplace solutions, which is a strategy that we use in the state of Tennessee. So that's a priority. We also want to look at performance contracting this year, simply because capital dollars are short. We've looked at other states. I saw Colorado, a lot of people were on here from Colorado. We've been looking at your legislation because we're trying to mimic it. We want to be able to provide performance contracting in our state because it's a great alternative when you don't have capital dollars to still make some improvements and keep things moving forward. We have a big facility conditions assessment study that we're still pursuing because we want to understand the complete value of deferred maintenance enterprise-wide. And we're still working on employee engagement. We've had quite a culture change in our department since I came. We've been doing lots of things to try to bring people together. We've initiated new programs. They've gotten very involved and very engaged. And we were the only state department that won a top workplace award in state government from the Tennessean, which is the large statewide newspaper. So now how to do that in a virtual world and keep everybody updated and motivated and engaged is definitely been the biggest challenge I've faced lately. But I think that answers most of your questions. If I've forgotten something, just let me know.
So Christy, it sounds like you're getting a full 8 hours sleep every night. But there's just been a comment in chat that says, Commissioner, your team has been crushing it. #Team Tennessee.
Thank you very much.
Kayana, I assume you're getting 8 hours sleep as well in Virginia. How are things in the Commonwealth?
You know, Scott, I'm getting a full 10 every night, so I don't know what folks are doing. On all seriousness, Virginia, you know, we are dealing with this in the same state as almost everyone else. The agencies under my secretariat are HR, IT, General Services, Elections. We just named our first Chief Data Officer last year, so building up a data analytics and sharing program that's off to a great start here, as well as working with all of our localities through a compensation board. So we're pretty much the nuts and bolts of all state government operations, keeping the lights on. COVID-19 has kind of turned everything upside down, right? Overnight, we had to do a large scale transition to teleworking. So making sure that we had an IT infrastructure that can support that, expanding our VPN and our virtual desktops was something that we were able to go from, proof of concept to delivery within 1 week. Sourcing of PPE for all of our healthcare workers who are on the front lines. This was a really big issue with getting those materials to states and working with the federal government to the best of our ability. So happy to report that we now have an inventory of 400 suppliers that not only our state agencies, but our local governments, as well as our small businesses can tap in through our electronic procurement market. Facility management is big for us, right? Making sure that we have put all of the precautions in place to ensure a safe workplace for those who do have to be into our buildings at this point. From an HR perspective, giving guidance and best practices for teleworkings to make sure that both our managers and our employees are being able to work as effectively and efficiently and still just focus on outcome and not necessarily hours there. Real estate, I love what Christy mentioned. I think COVID has provided us with a great opportunity to actually look at our real estate portfolio, our footprint throughout the state, to look for areas of cost optimization. I think we're headed to a new normal. Things are not going back to the days of pre-COVID-19. So how do we adapt to that and look for opportunities to make long-term investments and changes into our operating model? I also have the state lab under my portfolio, which is a little unusual for administration, but I'm happy to report that we were able to work with the CDC to really expand our testing capability, as well as to bring in some other small companies within the state to be able to help supplement our testing capacity here, which is still continuing to grow to meet the needs of our population. So that's a intro of what we're working on, how COVID is really pushing us to look at things differently and to innovate in real time.
So I had joked at the opening of my comments that a lot of policy got done in the Red Lion pub in Westminster in London, and I'm already picking up between the two of you. There's a window for innovation here that's been presented through COVID-19 to get things done that may have been a possibility but might not have made the top of the pile. So I'm going to come back to that in a moment. But Amy, let's head south and go to Arkansas. And what's the picture there? Where are the commonalities and differences with Kayana and Christy?
Thank you, Scott. Some of the things that I cover in my operations is the personnel, procurement, information systems. We have geographic information systems, employee benefits, and the building authority, so all of the property and leases around the state. We have changed a lot since COVID and it shifted everyone's priorities, I think, but getting everyone set up quickly to work remotely, learning how to meet virtually, which for a lot of policy development. We found that our inclement weather policies looked at a very different scenario than you look at when you're in a public health emergency. Working on things such as setting up call centers to address the needs and unemployment right now. Safety's been a priority. I've learned more about PPE than I ever wanted to know. And then just sanitation, spacing, how we provide for our workforce has really been some of the changes that we've seen. My priorities for the department are innovation of our processes. We've worked a lot on that. Changing the culture of state government is one of the things that I think about every week. And how do I do that? How do we all do that? To one that's more responsive, more accommodating, and one that works as a team across the entire state rather than being so siloed and individual in our thoughts and processes. Our mission for my department is EPIC Service. And so EPIC is an acronym that stands for Excellence and Expedience, looking at people over the process, innovation, and continuous improvement. So those are some of the things that we're focusing on here in Arkansas.
I love it. Amy, thank you so much. And I love that the innovation is thinking about people and culture. I'm going to be spending a lot of time during the rest of this virtual series focusing on how we tap into human talent and equity as we go forward. Dan, give us a picture in California.
So a lot of the same things that my colleagues just spoke to, but with respect to real estate, we're really looking at this both internally and externally. So with respect to internally, we have about 38 million square feet of either leased or state-owned space, and we're not going to need it all. So we have to figure out what are we going to do in the future, because telework is here to stay. But how do we do this careful planning? How do we think about things in terms of post-COVID versus just what's going on right now? Because we don't want to throw the baby out with bathwater. So that's top of mind. Telework policy, which my department's over. So how do we implement a policy? How do we work with the bargaining units on that? How do we make this real? And again, how do we not overreact, but at the same time meet the needs and meet the moment? PPE, obviously, but on the procurement end, we're doing so much. We're developing right now an RFP for surgical masks and N95 masks that we will make available not just to state departments, but also to local governments and possibly other states. And that's a major challenge right now. But we're really thinking also about field medical stations and thinking about how do we get the economy back up, and what's our role in DGS in promoting that. And right now, largely it's about making sure that we get medical supplies available. But another thing I don't want to forget, and that was top of mind prior to COVID, is sustainability. And that's something that our departments have a lot to help in, because we have a huge footprint, whether it's construction or fleet, facility management. We can do a lot to reduce the carbon footprint. And I found out actually with the telework policy, in our department alone, we've calculated we are reducing, by not driving to work, it's about the equivalent of 10,000 gallons of gas we're saving a week, just in my department. I can't imagine the savings statewide.
That span of control that you all have, both directly and Christy, you touched on your budget, and then the budget that you influence, like the scale of influence. So let's come back here. I'd love to focus on sort of what have been the most surprising or welcome innovations that have come through COVID-19. There's a wonderful study out of Canada that has been interviewing Canadian fathers who've expressed that one of the big upsides is they've actually spent more time with their kids and discovered they like their children. So for Canadian dads, the innovation has actually been being present. Maybe that will stop people like us saying, you know, I'm babysitting my kids this weekend. We'll eradicate that phrase from men, at least north of the border. But for each of you, what have you seen in your states and commonwealths that has almost been an unexpected, welcome innovation as a result of this?
If I could start, one thing that we've been able to do in California is take this as an opportunity to house homeless people. So in order to prevent the spread of COVID, we made a statewide policy. How do we get homeless folks into housing? We've used this program called Operation Room Key, where we've identified hotels throughout the state and housed people there and provided supportive housing, supportive services surrounding that. And then we found out that in the course of doing that, the state is now actively pursuing options to purchase some of these hotels and make these into permanent supportive housing units. So that's something that's going on right now. In fact, we've gone ahead and in our budget, we've proposed $600 million for that effort. And given that the state of many hotels right now, many of them are close to bankruptcy, so this can be a win-win proposition.
It's amazing. That's remarkable. Amy, take us to Arkansas. What's going on there that you're seeing that has been a welcome surprise?
One thing that has really been evident in Arkansas is just the willingness to work across all departments and just the attitude of we're all in this together, learning from each other, helping each other, assisting, which is really the goal for our state. And as far as you were talking about personally, in my personal life, one of the most welcome things is just the family dinner. everyone is sitting down and eating together and no one's jumping up from the table. So that's been a great experience that I've enjoyed and welcomed during this time.
I love it. Christy, what about you?
Yeah, so for us, we instituted alternative workplace solutions. I mentioned this earlier back in 2017 under Governor Haslam. And it is a way to work so that you can really do the work that you do in the best possible way. And sometimes that includes work from home, sometimes it includes mobile work, and sometimes it's free address, just where you have a landing space. So we had that program in place beginning in 2017, and it went really well through the Haslam administration. Then it kind of slowed down. We had a new governor come in, and I think everyone kind of took a step back and said, is this governor going to be as supportive of AWS as the previous governor? And he is. The good news is when COVID hit, we were able to transition very easily and move lots of people home, because there were lots of people already working home. But the rest of the departments now are embracing AWS. And what that means for us is we've already reduced our real estate footprint by about 375,000 square feet. And we're predicting over the next 2 years, we're going to reduce it by another 375,000 square feet. And we're in, as I mentioned before, a very hot market in downtown Nashville. And let's hope the market's still that way after COVID-19, but we're going to be able to potentially sell 2 different office buildings. So that's wonderful. The good news also is you have reduced your recurring expenses every year because of real estate. $5 million we've done so far, and then in another couple of years we hope to see another $5 or $6 million within which we would reduce the square footage. But I do think, and someone else mentioned this a minute ago, we will see more people move into a permanent work from home situation. All the departments, of course, across our state are looking at how they can reduce their cost. And the one thing they've realized going through this is that they can reduce their cost by moving people into these AWS situations and not needing the real estate. And so it's a huge savings to our taxpayers. And it's also a new way of really working. And the big draw for us is flexibility, of course, is a great recruitment tool. And a great retention tool as well, because we have lots of people, of course, that are retiring across the country. And young people, young workers will come in, and if you offer them flexibility, they're all about it. They love it. That's one of their favorite things. If they hear that, I mean, the difference in the money can be, quite a bit more than what you would think if you can give them flexibility. So I think that's it's been wonderful to see more departments embrace AWS across our state.
And Christy, I think you touched on this in your opening remarks. I believe it was you used the phrase, we have to move from outcome to outcomes, not hours. And we'll be talking about sort of creating cultures within states and commonwealths to support some of those cultural transitions that are going to be necessary. Kayana, let's hear about some innovations in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Just a reminder, I'm a taxpayer in the Commonwealth of Virginia, so I'm hoping these are going to be impressive.
We love you being a taxpayer in Virginia, and we want you to stay here. Just elaborating on what Christy said, for us, what I've been most pleased with is the overall culture shift that I'm seeing through state government. You know, if an employee worked at a particular agency, left for, let's say, 3 or 4 years and came back, 9 times out of 10, not many things have changed while they were gone. COVID-19 has really forced us to innovate and to adapt in real time. You know, a lot of our agencies have had to go through tremendous IT and digital modernizations within just a course of a few weeks to be able to keep their critical services running. And I actually think that those services are more citizen centric now and a better experience for those citizens. So I actually think the IT investments that we're making right now to automate, that's going to have long lasting change to how government operates and how it operates more effectively and efficiently. The workplace culture. As Christy was saying, I think it is really important as we try to become premier, employers in this space that we allow flexibility for our employees. Now that they've had a taste of what it is like to work from home, either full-time or part-time, this is something that the workforce is going to want moving forward. And I love that our managers are being able to adapt to this and to see that the outcomes that are still important at the end of the day are being met, and productivity for some agencies are actually rising. So I actually see a continual shift that will continue along that route, and that's something that's of great benefit. And lastly, the empathy. You know, when businesses close, governments are needed more than ever. And I am really proud of our state workforces and workforces all across the country, as well as the federal government, who really leaned in to continue to provide vital services for our citizens, as well as treating one another with the respect and the mutual support that I think we've all needed. Here in Virginia, we really work to provide wellness programs, both physically as well as mental health, because there's a lot going on, adapting professionally as well as personally to COVID-19, in addition to all of the tremendous social change that's happening around us.
You're all touching on this theme that it's almost that several years from now, you'll be using this phrase, we need a COVID mindset to resolve this, that it's almost the thing that we've learned that we're going to force collaboration or going to win collaboration from each other to drive through the necessary change. Kayana, you touched on the sort of the social backdrop that we have to this, and this is a question that's close to my heart, having been a government servant. What are you doing about the common misconceptions around government itself, and particularly the operations of government, the pieces that you're responsible for? There appears to be a growing skepticism about the role that government plays in life. Are you addressing that head on? Are you bypassing that commentary and questions? But how, as public servants, are you speaking to the public about the value that government operations play? And maybe, Amy, let's start with you first. We may have a sound challenge with Amy, so I'm going to throw this over to Dan. Would you take that question?
Yeah, I think one misconception is that we are just a control agency and we say yes or no. And I think it's really important for us to really think that our departments need to be more consultative and provide counsel and advice and help departments. So one of the things we're doing is delegating more authority, seeding that, but making sure that we accredit departments for procurement. So again, making sure that the larger interest is served, which is making sure that departments procure appropriately, but we don't have to do it for them. At the same time, a lot of folks may have the misconception that all we do is execute on policies that other people make. And I think we have a huge role in setting the agenda. So with respect to sustainability, our departments have a huge carbon footprint. And we administratively can make a lot of changes that can shift how we are, whether we're carbon neutral or not. That's one area. We have a lot of surplus properties. We can shift how we use those properties, maybe for affordable housing or for other purposes. So I think for me, it's really about being more consultative, and two, about aligning what we do with larger policy goals.
Love it. Amy, I think we have sound back for you.
Yes, thank you. Some of the common misconceptions that I encounter is that state employees are not driven, not hardworking, and that our processes are inefficient. So some of the ways we're trying to combat that here in Arkansas is just engagement with the employees, leadership training, mentoring, working with those groups, and trying to change the image of how some people look at state employees. And then also in the processes, just continuous quality and process improvement, working to get the best enterprise systems in there that will benefit all of the state workers.
Thank you. And I was slightly distracted. We were trying to bring you up on camera, and we were presented with Dan. We can't get the president off the screen. I think that's a right of the president. And Christy and Kayana, I throw this over to you. So this sort of reputational thing, the brand of government, particularly the brand of government operations, how do you both feel? Feel free to disagree with each other.
Yeah, so I can't disagree with Amy on this one. I'm sorry. I'd like to, but I can't. So the thing that comes to my mind, and I've had local government experience. I was the COO deputy mayor for the city of Knoxville for about 6 years before I came to state government. And it was funny because I'd worked in the private sector my entire life. And so when I made the change, the private sector was like, oh, wow, we really appreciate you doing this and stepping up and going to the public sector. But dear God, you're not going to make it because it's going to be so hard. You're not going to be able to deal with the employees of the public sector. And just the opposite is true. The people who work in the public sector, you always have your one or two because we all draw from the human race, right? But the public sector, the people who are there are typically there because they're passionate. They want to make a difference. They believe in what they're doing, and they believe they can make a difference. And I saw that all across the government in the local level. and then came to the state level and hoped it would be the same, and it really has. So I've had nothing but pleasant experience. So how I look at it is it's incumbent upon me then to go back and tell all my private sector friends and colleagues that this is what happens in state government or local government, because they need to understand their tax dollars are used wisely, and that there are quality people working in these positions and making a sacrifice financially to do what they're doing because they love what they're doing and they're passionate about it. So I agree with Amy. My experience has been nothing but just wonderful. I have top-notch people in my department, my executive leadership team. I just adore them all. They're wonderful. They're hardworking. They're great people. And they really are here because they have a passion, because every single one of them could go do something different.
So this is all word of mouth about their service. And
It is for me. I mean, whenever I get the opportunity, just like this forum here, whenever I get the opportunity to be able to say something about it, especially if I'm talking to a chamber or I'm talking to a private sector group, I always want to make that point and bring it up with them and help them to understand it's not the perception.
Kayana.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with Amy and with Christy, though I'll say, the perception that government employees are not as dedicated is completely contrary to what I see every day, right? And what we've tried to do is to push back on that, right? We've engaged the media. We have agency heads who are writing op-eds, who are giving detailed experiences of the caseloads that they're handling, particularly our unemployment commission right now, right? We're putting out data and we're letting folks know this is the increase of claims that we've gotten over the last 4 months. And we're also showing how many new people we've hired, how many more call centers we've opened up to try to meet that demand. And so I actually think it's really important to use social media to communicate with the public, to bring transparency to the work that's happening behind the scenes, because we know that it's happening. We have success stories. I just don't think we invest a lot of time in that PR and telling that story to the greater public.
Yeah, it's interesting to think of the communications department focused on just telling the story of hard work. It's hard to generate news headlines from hard work every single day. Okay, we're very shortly out of time. I want to finish with this one question for which the rule is you can reply only with one word or one sentence only. And the question is this. You keep your governor informed on, and you get to fill that space. One word or one sentence. In today's world, I keep my governor informed on, and I'm gonna go West Coast to East Coast. So Dan, we're gonna start with you, and Kiana, we're gonna finish with you. And I've gotta work out where Tennessee and Arkansas are on a map. Let me have a look.
Okay, how much PPE did we order? How much has been delivered? How much is in our inventory? And how much have we sent out and to whom?
Governor Newsom will know PPE numbers from Dan. I like it. Okay, where's next in my geography? I think I know this. Tennessee's next, right? If I'm moving west to east, yes.
Actually, Arkansas.
These
I think
damn,
Arkansas is right before Tennessee.
is it really? All right, Arkansas, we're going next.
Neighbors.
These damn foreigners running these panels.
I would say policy alignment, making sure we're aligned with the state and federal directives and in this new normal, and then enterprise solutions.
Yeah, I love it. Alignment are the agencies working together? Okay, Christy.
So we've gotten lots of kudos, frankly, from the governor and from the other branches of government here. And I just try to make sure that the governor knows who it is or which division or which group within our department really deserves the credit, just to make sure he understands it's a team, and it's not just me, but it's people who are in this department and this division who've been in here for a lot of years who are really getting an opportunity to shine.
It reminds me so much of my diplomatic days where I'd whisper in an ambassador or consul general's ear. You just want to thank these people at this time. I love it. Kayana, bring us home.
Like Dan, our volume of PPE, the number of tests that we're performing each day at our lab, and then anything that may become above the fold.
Anything above the fold. The digital fold is still very, very important. Okay, thank you all so much. You have enormous responsibilities. The time you're investing to share these perspectives with us is on behalf of NASCA, is enormously appreciated.